So it sounds like I'm live. Okay, if you are watching this and it is not 10:22 a.m. Pacific, which is an hour later than normal, I know, then you're not watching the live show. If you're watching the live show, then just wait for that to hit 0, and that's when the show will start. If you see a thing pop up right there, then that is the show that you want to watch, is the edited version of this show. But if nothing's there, then just scrub till the end of that time, and the show will start. We'll be right back. Hey folks, we're just about there, just about ready. Sorry for the late start for those who were looking forward to a 9:30 a.m. show. I was just running a little bit behind as far as getting the show together and thought, you know, I'm not going to stress out about it. We're just going to push to 10:30 because, hey, A, it's Friday, B, it's my show, so I can do that if I want to. That's kind of how I saw it, so hopefully that didn't put too many of you off too badly. We are going to hopefully have a nice little show. All right, let's see. We're ready here. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and hit record on the big button. Let's get this rolling so we are ready when the thing hits 0, because I think we are ready when the thing hits 0. So you guys like my new mug? So yesterday was my birthday, and my children decided that this would be an appropriate gift. But it came with a caveat that I couldn't keep this at home because clearly I'm not the boss at home. So take it to work. Like, thanks. So there you go. I am the boss, apparently. It's also one of the world's biggest mugs. If I filled that thing with coffee, I'd be crawling on the ceiling. Tony says, PhotoJoseph is the boss's applesauce. What, Ryan? Perfect for Ryan in the morning, he says. Excellent. All right, I think we're all set. Let's get that out of the way. That's at 0. Can we just get rid of that? We don't need that anymore. And let's have ourselves a show, shall we? I think we're ready. We're recording? Yes. On today's show, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite lenses for Micro Four Thirds, the Panasonic Leica f1.7. Good morning and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live 3 times a week show here at youtube.com/PhotoJoseph at 9:30 a.m. usually Pacific time. Well, 9:30 a.m. usually, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time usually. That'd be the right, because it's always Pacific time. Anyway, usually at 9:30. Today it's at 10:30. It's just a little bit of a late start on Friday, but we talk about all things photo, video, live streaming related, just kind of anything along those lines is fair game. And today we're talking about gear. A particular lens that I have had for many, many years is one of the first. It's probably the first Leica, it might have not been the first Leica branded lens, but the first Leica branded lens that I really fell in love with and started using a lot. And by a lot, I mean really a lot. That is the Panasonic Leica for LUMIX for Micro Four Thirds, the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7. So 15mm on Micro Four Thirds, that is a 30mm equivalent for full frame. So this is a very good, slightly wide field of view, not super wide, not standard, you know, your standard being your 50mm equivalent, somewhere in between there. And for me, this lens has really been the ideal street photography lens. And for me, street photography typically means travel. I don't live somewhere where I go out and do street photography locally, so that means travel. And it is just, it's been a beautiful travel lens. First of all, I've got it here on the GX85. So let's get a little close-up look at this. You can really appreciate the size of this thing. Very small, very short lens. This is on the GX85. You can see in my hands, and I don't have big hands, so this is a really nice compact fit in there. Got kind of a top-down view. You can see what that looks like. On the GX85, if you do the flip-out LCD, then you've got a waist-level view like this that's super nice, just normal shooting, very nice and compact. Easily fits with one hand, easy to carry around, super lightweight. And the lens comes with, this is kind of cool, a metal lens shade. There's not too many lenses that come with the metal lens shade, but this is metal. That goes on there. When you put that on, you actually have 2 lens caps that come with it. There's this rubberized lens cap that kind of pops into place. That's your normal everyday carrying around setup, but if you don't want that on, it also comes with the standard size lens cap, which I'm sure I have long ago lost because this lens shade just stays on there permanently. But it's a really nice compact size. You can see here, f1.7, and it has the mechanical aperture ring. Now, there's not too many lenses that have that. It's the Leica lenses from the Panasonic lineup that have the mechanical aperture ring. It's kind of funny. I'm of two minds about it. On the one hand, I really, really like having that option there. I like being able to reach up and turn the aperture ring mechanically, just like you always did back in the day. You know, I go back to shooting from like the dark ages, so that was just the way it always was. But on the other hand, I've gotten so used to most lenses not having it, and so used to adjusting aperture with my thumb or finger, depending on whatever the camera setup is, that I tend to more often than not just leave it in the A mode on here. So if we go back to it, as long as if you lock it into the A mode there, then now you can take over from whatever dial, you know, depending on the camera you're using, whatever dial you're using to control it. So it's up to you. You can go either way on it. Like I said, because I'm so used to it with so many other lenses, I tend to not switch for these. But it's great that it's there, and if you had all Leica lenses with the aperture on there, then you probably would end up using it all the time just because it is so comfortable and familiar. This lens also has a mechanical autofocus to manual focus switch on it, which is really nice. Again, that's one of those things that if you're not used to it, you may not really take advantage of it. And on some cameras, like the higher end, the GH series and the G9 cameras have a mechanical switch on the camera to go between autofocus and manual focus. So you don't really need the one on the lens. But like this camera, the GX85 does not have that. So with the GX85 on a standard normal lens that doesn't have the switch on it, you would have to go into the menus to switch it into manual focus, which is obviously a bit tedious. Having that switch on the lens itself can be super, super nice. So overall, very small and compact and lightweight. Just to take, if I take everything off, you can see just how small this really is. It is a beautiful, tiny, very lightweight little lens. Pair that up with any camera, but especially something small like the GX85, and you've got a really, really nice travel setup here, travel kit. So what have I been using the lens for? Well, obviously I've said a lot of travel, a lot of street photography, and as I was going through my archives of photos this morning, looking for a gallery to put together to show you guys, I realized that the vast majority of what I've shot with this lens is travel photography. That really is where it mostly comes out. And mostly stills. Now, I have shot some video with it, and we've actually linked down below, we'll link up here as well, to a video that I did for this camera, actually, the GX85, that I shot in New Orleans for Panasonic. And it's kind of a, like, you'll see me on camera talking about this and holding it, but then you'll also see shots made with this camera. And a lot of the shots, the video and stills that you see in that video shot with the GX85 were shot with this lens. So if you want to see some video results, in that video it doesn't identify which were shot with this lens, unfortunately, because the video is about the body. But when you see a wider shot in there that's video, it's probably shot with this lens. But we're going to take a look at a bunch of stills right now that I have pulled up from this. Now the lens itself, let's just take a quick look at the buying page on B&H just so you know the price of this lens, $548 currently for this lens. It looks like it's got a little bit of an instant savings going on right now, normally right around $600. I don't know how permanent that deal is, but there you go. That's the current price on it. So it's certainly not one of the cheapest lenses in the lineup, but it's far from one of the most expensive as well. Given the sharpness of this lens, the overall quality, the speed, and nice fast f1.7, it's, I would say, price-wise, I think it's a great value. It is one of those that if you're willing to spend a little bit of extra money to have a really good quality lens, you will not be unhappy with this. It's definitely a great choice. So with that said, let's take a look at at some pictures that I pulled together for you. But before I do that, I do want to tell you about one other thing, which I just now realized I've built the slide for, but did not pull into my graphics collection here. So just give me half a moment here to figure out where I put that. It's a part of too many things going on in the morning. It's like one of these days I'm gonna, okay, so hold on, let me find. I have all these different meetups. There we go, there's the one I want. I'm just gonna pull it up. I don't even know which, let's see, hopefully I pull this into the right spot here. Let's see here. Nope, that's the wrong one. All right, don't look at that. Don't look at that. You can look at that slide. You don't have to look at that slide. Don't worry, I'll cut this out of the edited show. You're like, seriously, do you have any idea what you're doing? No, generally not. It's a photo walk. Where is it? I built a slide and I created it, and I have no idea what I did with it. Nope, not a meetup. What did I call it? Oh, well. I guess I'll have to save that slide for next week. How about I just tell you about it instead? I know what I'll do. I'll pull up the web page. That'll be how I'm going to do this. Ha. There's a plan to my madness, or a madness to my plans, one of the two. Yes, there we go. Okay. I have a couple of events coming up I want to make sure you guys know about. So in October, that's this month right now, on Friday, October the 19th and Saturday the 20th, I'm going to be in Boston at Hunt's Photo and Video. There is a free event that you can attend there. I'm doing 2 different seminars, one that's getting started with video from shooting to editing, and another one on Saturday that is travel photography, keeping it nimble, affordable, and fun. So as you can might imagine, I'll be talking about this lens there. These are both free, so you can get more information or register for these events if you go to photojoseph.com/events. It'll take you to the right page. And then there's a B&H event happening on October 24th, which I don't have the registration info yet, but that will be here as soon as it is. And then on Friday, October 26th at Photo Plus Expo, I'm doing a free, all of these things are free by the way, a free photo walk with Panasonic. It's partnered with Panasonic with the G9s. This is off-camera flash photography at twilight. So we're going to have a box full of LUMIX G9 cameras for you to borrow. We're going to have a box full of, here we go, pro-grade memory cards that you guys can borrow. With any luck, I'm going to have a third-party flash manufacturer, still sorting that out. Here's the thing with this. 18 out of the 20 slots are already gone. So if you think you want to go, you got to go register. Because it's filled up so quickly, I am going to see if there's any way that I can do a second event. It might have to be not off-camera flash because there's obviously, for Twilight, obviously that has to be, at Twilight, and there's a limited number of evenings. But I might try and schedule in another event. But if you want to do this one that Friday night, you better sign up now because those seats are almost completely gone. So Photo Plus Expo, if you're going to be out there in New York, go to photojoseph.com/events and you'll see all the info about that there. All right, let's take a look at some pictures, shall we? I got a library that I pulled together into Lightroom CC. I'm going to just go ahead and pull these up and kind of go through some of these one by one and explain what they are. So this is New Orleans. This is actually that shoot that I was just talking about for the video. And street photography. I love it for street photography. You're going to see a few photos like this in the collection because it's specifically I'm trying to show off the shallower depth of field that you do get out of this. One of those things as a Micro Four Thirds shooter, one of those things you hear all the time from people who aren't used to Micro Four Thirds is comments like either, oh yeah, but you can't get shallow depth of field, yeah, you can't get bokeh, or what kind of lens do I have to get bokeh with that? As you all know, when you are shooting with a smaller sensor, it is more of a challenge to get the bokeh, to get that really, really shallow depth of field. That's just the nature of a smaller sensor. That's why on your smartphone, it's really hard to get any kind of bokeh. If you're shooting in medium format or large format, then you can be at f5.6 at 10 feet away and still get really shallow depth of field, right? So it just depends on the size of your sensor. So when you are on a smaller sensor, you want the fastest lens possible, opened up all the way to get that shallow depth of field. And the closer to your subject, again, this is universal, doesn't matter what kind of camera or lens you're shooting with, the closer to your subject, the greater distance from your subject to the background, the more bokeh you're going to get. That's just facts and science. So I have a collection of the photos in here that I've selected because they show that shallower depth of field, and quite often because it is such a wide field of view lens, that does mean that I'm up quite close to the primary subject, and then the background is a bit farther away, giving us that nice shallower depth of field look. So it's all about positioning your subject, lens choice, aperture selection, and so on. So with that said, so something like this, here you see obviously the violin in the foreground. The gentleman in the back is clearly nicely out of focus on there. So again, shot with this 15mm lens. Just great color reproduction. The lens is super sharp edge to edge, just a beautiful, beautiful lens. They're a little bit more of the little bokeh thing, kind of going a little bit closer on the focus on the foreground. Very good low light performance. That's one of the advantages, obviously, of being f1.7, wide open. You get a lot more light coming through than you would on a closed, smaller aperture lens. So really, really nice for stuff like that. Here, again, close-up, nice shallow depth of field. That's Little Freddie King, if you're wondering, a blues musician out of New Orleans. So again, here, close-up, but kind of the other way around, right? I'm quite close to the subject, but I'm focusing on I don't think you can call it a guitar. I have no idea what that instrument is, some homemade thing. But the instrument is in focus, and the subject himself is nicely soft. So you're, again, getting that shallow depth of field in there, and even to the background, right? You can see the floor in the background there, the other person's shoes, those are out of focus. Our musician's shoulder pads are out of focus, his hair is out of focus, but his hands and the instrument are sharp. Standard kind of wider, no everything in focus kind of a photo there. Street photography, right? It's really, for me, this lens comes down to street photography. It's so light, so nimble, so easy and quick to grab and focus and use. So this is, you've probably all seen this photo before. I've talked about this one a fair number of times. This is in Georgia, Tbilisi, Georgia. So now we're at Republic of Georgia, not the state in the United States. These next few photos are going to be from there. When I did the project in Georgia, I was shooting, I think I've shot almost exclusively, if not exclusively, with the GX85. Again, went for the really small, nimble, lightweight. It's all about street photography, and again, this lens being a key part of that. Not every photo I did there was with this lens, but every photo you're about to see here were shot with this lens. So I'll actually link this photo itself. I've done a whole video on the story of this photo. It's kind of cool, so we'll link to that up here. By all means, do check out that video. It's a fun story behind that picture right there. So I will let you watch that one to hear the story for that photo. Great dynamic range. Obviously, this is largely the sensor, the great dynamic range, but focusing fast to focus. The lens does focus very, very quickly. I think that's one of the points that I want to make on it, and I think I saw a question fly by on this already. It does focus very, very quickly. It's being a wider lens. This is one of those, just kind of talking about lenses in general. If you have a lens that is a really long telephoto lens, chances are you can have a longer rack to zoom, right? Just physically more movement to get through from your closest to your farthest distance. When you have a wider field of view lens, that tends to be less of a movement. This isn't like a universal truth, but it's pretty much the way it is. And when you have to move the lens less distance from closest focus point to infinity, then clearly the camera can move it faster. And so you have less of a movement. So if you imagine, if you will, if infinity was here and closest focus is all the way here, the camera has to go from here to here, whereas if it's just here to here, it's a little bit less movement, the camera can focus more quickly. So you pair that with a camera that focuses nice and quickly on autofocus, as the GX85 does, the GH9, all those cameras do. With a lens like this, you're gonna get really nice, quick focus. And being that it is such a wide field of view, even if you're not perfectly nailed on focus, just really close to it, which is one of the advantages for street photography, you're probably going to get it sharp anyway. So those moments where you just pick up the camera and click, boom, and somebody's moving towards you and maybe they moved out of the plane of focus ever so slightly, odds are pretty good you're going to get focused on there. So it's just, again, one of those advantages of the slightly wider field of view lens. If we look back at this photo, looks like I was probably focusing on the pan itself. You can see his face is largely sharp, mostly sharp in there, not completely, and we're getting the nice fire capture in there, which is always fun. So some top-down food photography. Again, this is part of the Tbilisi, Georgia story. Low light performance, beautiful low light, handheld. So this lens, I want to point out as well, this lens does not have built-in stabilization, but you don't generally need it on these wider field of view lenses, especially when you're pairing it with a body that has stabilization. The GX85 does, the G9 does, the GH5 does, the GH5S does not. So there's actually a great point. If you're shooting with the GH5S, which does not have stabilization, and you pair it with this lens, which does not have stabilization, you are completely locked. You have no stabilization whatsoever. But if you pair this lens with a body that has the IS, then you're going to get that. Obviously, you don't get dual IS. Dual IS is when the lens has it as well. This does not, but that's part of what makes it smaller and lighter as well. And again, at that wider field of view, having IS is less important than it is on a longer lens. You can hand hold a 15mm lens where you may not be able to hand hold a 400mm lens just without getting the movement in there. So it's just something to point out. But when it comes to low light photography, this lens has been fantastic, fantastic. So I have a couple of these top-down shots, and this is one of those, this is part of the Georgia story, part of the Tbilisi, Georgia story. And one of the reasons I included these is it's part of this whole very small, lightweight, easy to work with lens. When you're doing something like this, holding the camera up above, okay, we'll do it like this, up above your head, you flip out the LCD. Okay, granted, this camera doesn't do the full flip around LCD, but to be able to get the camera up there, hold it steady, get that up above, holding it way out, because it's so light, and it's not like I'm holding some big, huge, heavy lens where after a couple of moments there of trying to hold it, you're just starting to lose it. It's just so nice and light and easy, and you really can get those good, stable overhead shots. It's just, I like shooting like that, especially food stuff. I like that straight top-down look, so I tend to do a lot of that, especially on this trip. This Georgia trip was, I was doing a story on food, incidentally. So I have a lot of photos like that, and it just really works out well for that. And again, that wider field of view, handheld, I might have been, I probably was standing on a chair for this photo, to be fair, because this is a bit of a wider shot, but able to get that whole table in there pretty easily. Close-up, again, going for the close-up, look at how shallow that depth of field is. Now, yes, I am very, very close on there, but you get it. You get that really shallow depth of field. In fact, on this shot, maybe even too shallow depth of field, but it's there. You can absolutely do it with this lens. Another top-down food shot. Now I'm hungry. Let's see here, what else I got? So more top-down. So here, clearly standing on a ladder or something, standing over the chef who's baking bread here, being able to get that shot on there. There are people walking on my roof right now. Low light performance again, love this, love this. Getting a shot of someone building a little fire, a little campfire out here at twilight came together really, really nicely. And there again, you have that bit of a shallow depth of field. You know, she's obviously in focus, the fire is in focus, the flowers in front, and then the mountains in the background are nicely soft. And again, very good low light. Again, just kind of street photography type of photos. Just a couple of other favorite shots in here that I really liked. Super, super low light. This is definitely handheld. This is in a wine cellar, one of the oldest wine cellars in Georgia, if I remember that correctly. Just super dark, one light in there, but obviously came out great. People stuff. So now we're gonna get into some people photography. I don't shoot weddings. Most of you who watch me regularly know this, but you'll find a few wedding shots in my work, and they're all family. You know, this was my brother-in-law's wedding. So I do a little bit of photography there for that. And this is some shots with that. And I included these to show people photography. Obviously, we've already seen some people in the street photography genre, but now as a wedding camera, again, not a professional wedding photographer, but as a wedding shooting lens, I think it works out really well. You want those wider shots to get the groups of people in there, get down low, nice and easy. It's kind of fun. If you're wondering where this is Slovenia. You probably aren't going to find a wedding like this around here in the U.S. Just great, nice wide shots there. Street photography, again, this is Oaxaca, Mexico, so I'm just gonna flip through some of these real quickly. Love shooting black and white, nice wide field of view there. This lens just worked out really well for so many different things. Again, low light in the bar, digging it. Close up, shallow depth of field, we're seeing that again. So again, you get nice and close, you definitely get that nice big bokeh in there. Super low light capability in here. Oh, they're portraits, just straight up portrait photography. So yeah, this is wide, not the kind of lens you would think of for a portrait shot, but man, you get up close to there and you know it can work out really, really well. More shallow depth of field, getting really close on the hands. It's a nice thing about this lens too, because it is so small and light and unobtrusive. Like that photo, put up here again, that photo, to be able to get, imagine this is someone who's doing this artwork, they're just sitting there with their hands doing it, and I'm able to get, if their hands are here, I'm able to get really close to them. Just get in there, and it's not this big, huge, obtrusive thing. It's this really nice, small, lightweight package. It doesn't feel like some big honking camera in their face. You just get that down there nice and easy. With the flip-up LCD, you kind of look down. I don't have to get down on the table like that. Love that. And it just makes for this really ideal lens for stuff like that. Love it. And there, again, you get the nice shallow depth of field, you get the out of focus. This is paper, actually. She's doing art with paper, making, I think those are going to be earrings. Really, really cool. Let's see here. I think this is Sweden. Yeah, this is Sweden. So, yeah, again, just some tourism type photos, but again, street photography kind of thing. Food, love food. That's actually kind of pretty. So yeah, food photography is just on the streets, you know, something I bought and I had to take a picture of because it was so pretty. Landscapey, this is, you know, waterfall kind of landscapey. I think that's the last one I did in there. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to show you some photos over the years. I went through my Lightroom and just filtered by this and filtered by my rated photos and then just grabbed some of my favorites from there. Overall, it's been a wonderful lens to have. Like I said in the beginning, you could do much worse. If you have a little bit of money to spend, because it's not super, super cheap, but it's definitely not super expensive, you want a really good travel lens. I personally prefer to work with fixed focal length lenses for shooting stills than zooms. I tend to go with zooms for video, fixed focal length for still photography. You get the advantage of that shallower depth of field, the faster aperture, and I don't mind changing lenses so much. And if you're doing street photography, something like this, you know, it's just one less thing to think about with the zooming. You zoom with your feet. I've got a fixed focal length. This is what it is. I'm used to it. Before I pick that camera up to my face, I know exactly what this field of view is going to be. I know exactly what the shot's going to look like, and it's just a great way to shoot, great lens to have. So there you go. I hope that was interesting and useful to you all. All right, we are going to jump into the Q&A. There's a whole bunch of questions or comments that have come by already. If you have a question and you're watching live, make sure you type @PhotoJoseph in front of it, and we'll get it up onto the Q&A right now. Welcome back to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the Q&A portion of the show. We are doing a Q&A follow-up on this lens, the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7. If you have not watched the video on this yet, before you watch the Q&A, watch the video. We'll link to it right here to make sure that you know what we're talking about in the Q&A here. So this is a live Q&A. So for those of you who are watching live and are in the chat, you get to participate this. Make sure you put at PhotoJoseph in front of it like Tony Smith did there so that I know that you've got a question for me. People talking about me being, so we're making a joke about my new mug here. I am the boss. It was a birthday present from my kids. They were quick to point out that I couldn't leave this at home because I'm clearly not the boss at home. But here, I get to be the boss, so there we go. I feel like a scene from that Office Space. I walk around with this mug all the time. Yeah. Okay. What do we got here? John Roberts. My only complaint about the lens hood, okay, is that the stops that keep the hood locked on the lens wear down super fast. My hood is always falling off. Now that's interesting. I've had this lens for 3-4 years, quite a long time. I don't know that I've ever had. I shouldn't say never, but I don't have falling off is definitely not a problem. I mean, you can hear it lock in. And yeah, sure, it's not hard to take off, but there's also nothing to catch on it, so I've never had a problem with that. That's interesting that you've had an issue with it. I would say, let's see here, if I was having an issue with that, how would I solve this? I would get, what's that, it's not a glue, oh, help me out, chat room. It's like in arts and crafts stuff, it's kind of used for everything to fill in gaps or to kind of adhere stuff together. It's got a funky name like goopy stuff, I don't know. God. Anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? There's this substance. Anyway, what I would probably do is get some of that mystery substance. Put that on the edges, on the little latches here. So here, let's go for a close-up on this. So we're talking about these little edges there. Just a tiny little bit and kind of rub it over it just to thicken this up a bit. And once as it was starting to dry, I would take this and kind of go on there and put it on a couple of times to just smooth it out and get it exactly where you want it. And then let it dry completely, and then I think you'd have a much better grip on there. That's probably how I would solve that. And then you could even, if it ended up being too thick, you could file it down a little bit, just to thicken that up a little bit. Hodgepodge, that's the word I was looking for. It's called hodgepodge, or Mod Podge, something like that. That would be it. Someone's suggesting plumber's tape. I think that might be too thick, because you need a very, very thin layer of something extra in there. Anyway, hodgepodge or Mod Podge or Podge Wodge or something along those lines. Anyway, that would be my suggestion. All right. Hopefully that helps you, John Roberts, because that's not an issue that I've had, but I could certainly see how it could become an issue. Or, you know, the other solution would be to simply put it on there, take a piece of plumber's tape, as someone suggested, or gaff tape, whatever, and just tape it on. And that might work too. Anyway, get it on there. Maybe a tape wouldn't be too much if you put a tiny little bit of tape and really like squish it on there, it would stay. There's a solution in there, no problem. Ben 5 Shuttle, I store the lens with the lens hood on, but I find it frustrating when I put the lens on the camera as my fingers catch the hood and it starts to undo, and or I catch the aperture ring. Interesting there too. So I guess I'm just so used to it. When I go to put it on, sure, like, okay, right now as I took that off, it got a little bit loose in my hand, but I know when I put this in, it's just gonna go into my bag, it's all in there. Take it off, yeah, it's gonna go on there. Actually, so, okay, here we go. I can tell you exactly. So let's just say, let me take this off again. I'm gonna loosen this. So I put it on. Let's get it back on there, come in the right spot. Hello. There we go. So it's not on all the way right now. It is not on all the way. It is absolutely loose, okay? So I'm deliberately not putting on all the way. As I go to put this on the camera, it's the same rotation spinning it to lock it, lock the lens, as it is to lock the lens hood. So I think what I'm doing is just kind of out of habit is whenever I put this on, I am making sure that I spin everything so that both the lens hood and the lens are locking in place. So I just kind of grip onto everything and spin it. Because as you say that and I do it, I feel like that's what I do. It's just kind of a natural movement now because I put it on so many times, but I think that's probably what I do. Yeah. But it's never been so loose that it's been a problem for me. If it had been, then I would have done something about it by now. But hopefully that helps. Okay, Serge says, how noisy is the autofocus motor and aperture actuator thinking about getting the lens for shooting video? Okay, so the aperture actuator, if you're doing it manually, you can definitely hear that, no question about it. It's not going to be a stepless aperture. So it's not the kind of lens that you would want to adjust the aperture while shooting video, while rolling, because you would see the light drop. You would see that change. So regardless of how noisy it is or isn't, it's not a lens that you would want to change aperture while shooting video. So that's irrelevant. As far as the autofocus, I think it's, oh, I didn't have a battery in this camera, in this lens? Oh, I do, in this camera. It's probably a dead battery. I didn't prepare to actually demo the camera itself. I think it's I can't say that it's noisy or quiet. I don't recall ever thinking that it was noisy in the slightest. So I'm going to say it's very, very quiet, just because it's not one that I am aware of. The only lens, there is one lens that I can think of that the aperture is noisy, and that is the 25mm f1.4 lens. That one, whenever the camera focuses it, or not focuses, but measures exposure, kind of opens up the aperture all the way. So if you're stopped down, you hear it go zzz, zzz, every time, and that's that lens. This lens doesn't make any noise doing that. So hopefully that helps answer your question. It's, as far as I'm concerned, this lens is totally silent. Oh, and then John Roberts saying that he uses it for vlogging a lot and it's a very quiet lens. Awesome. John Roberts then says, starting by saying turn the lens to the A and then the dial on the camera to change the aperture. Yeah, again, can't right now because don't have a proper battery in here, but John Roberts is saying works fine for him, and I'm telling you that it's not a lens that you're going to want to adjust the aperture while shooting because of that step down, stepping effect that you would get. If you really want to change the exposure while shooting, then put a variable ND filter on it. That's the way you should be adjusting the exposure anyway. And just in case you're kind of wondering, well, why not change the aperture? Keep in mind, okay, when you're shooting video, so a bit of a side step here, but an important thing to discuss. When you're shooting video or stills, when you're creating images with a camera, you have three things that equate for the exposure, right? You have your aperture, you have your shutter speed, and you have your ISO. Every single one of those changes something in the image, right? Your ISO is going to change the noise level. So if you change ISO while shooting, your noise level will change in the image, in the still or video. And so if we're thinking about video, if this changes while you're shooting, you could see your noise increase or decrease in the shot. Probably that is going to be the least offensive and least likely to be noticed thing to change. So shooting, video, and auto ISO is usually not a bad thing, especially if you're doing vlogging kind of stuff, then great, fine. Your shutter speed changing, or shutter angle, if you're gonna go really high tech about it, while you're shooting video, you generally don't want that to change because of how it affects the image, right? If you've got fast motion, you're gonna get in a fast shutter speed, you're gonna get that kind of staccato movement. A slower shutter speed, you're gonna get that more blurry movement. And if that's changing while you're shooting, that's something you're probably gonna see. If you change aperture while you're shooting, first of all, if it's not a stepless aperture ring, as most lenses that are designed for photography are not, then you are going to see a jump. You're going to see your image go from one exposure to slightly darker to slightly darker to slightly darker as you stop it down or brighten it up or whatever the case may be. But also your depth of field changes, right? So even if you have a totally stepless aperture, as you stop that lens down or open it up, your depth of field will change. Now, unless that's the effect that you're looking for, it's probably not something that you want happening when you're shooting video. So the only way then to control the amount of light coming in without changing any of those three things is to put the variable ND on it. We did a whole video on variable NDs not too long ago. We'll link to that right up here, and that will kind of help to explain that whole idea. But there you have the ability to control the light coming into the camera before it ever gets to the camera. So your three only controls that you have in the camera for adjusting exposure do not change while you're rolling. That's the key. You don't want to change them while you're rolling, usually, unless it's an effect you're after. Okay, total side thing, but hopefully that was interesting. Right, Jake Uphill, howdy my friend, says, I use a Sony camcorder style camera with a 1-inch sensor, okay, with a fixed lens, and have noticed that I get bokeh at both ends of the lens, either super wide and close up, or at the long end zoomed in. See, even on a 1-inch sensor, smaller than the Micro Four Thirds, you can get bokeh. So people who say you can't get bokeh on Micro Four Thirds, you slap them upside the head and show them some of these pictures. Christopher Pepe says, love this lens, awesome, can get extremely close, great for flowers and bees. The 15 lives on my GX85. It's a perfect combination, isn't it? That's interesting, extremely, okay, now I'm gonna have to get a battery. Hold on a second. Okay, hopefully I have one that's charged up around here somewhere. Let's see, I've got 2 batteries sitting right here, both labeled for this camera. I haven't shot with this in a while, so I have no idea if these are good or not. Let's find out. And then I'll be able to test your aperture. Oh, good, it lit up. I'll test out the noisy aperture thing for you as well. No memory card, that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna go into manual focus. I don't even know what the closest focusing distance is. We're gonna go all the way closest. And let's just see, and let's do a top down like this. Probably help if we actually focus. How did that camera get out of focus? That's weird. Okay, so there, and there's no light on there. Well, just overexpose it. So you can see it, there we go. Is that? No. Okay, there we go. There we go. There's your closest focusing. So let's move that so you can actually see it. Okay, so there's your closest focusing distance. That's pretty good. I mean, that's a, hand away from the sensor. That's nice. That is quite close. I don't know that I had ever really tried to go super close with it, but there you go. That's kind of cool. Okay, so excellent. Thank you for pointing that out, Christopher. And then the aperture. So what we want to test is, let's see here. Let me adjust the aperture. Go into aperture priority, put it into A. There we go. Okay, so you're going to hear this dial moving, right? You're going to hear the dial moving, but let's see if you can hear the aperture moving. The clicking that I'm hearing is all this dial. So you got more noise coming from the dial itself than you do from the aperture changing. That's my opinion. Let me switch this into video mode, actually start rolling, and see what happens. Oh, there's no memory card in here. Anyway, it's virtually silent. You're fine. We've got someone else in the chat room saying that they're shooting vlogs with it. I think you're going to be happy with it. All right. Let's see, anything else on here? Scrolling. There's a lot of conversation, but nothing with my name in front of it until we get here. Wherewithal Productions. What's up, PhotoJoseph? Howdy. I'm glad I could finally catch you live. Excellent. This lens is one of my absolute kit favorites. Look at that. See, lots of people love this lens. It's a beautiful lens. It really is. It really is. People talking about what cameras they're using. Awesome. Love the discussion. Ben Shuttle says, I went to update the firmware on my new 12-35 f2.8 Mark II lens. Okay. I don't have the copy of that lens. I still have the original one. New firmware 1.3. Awesome. Lens wouldn't update. Used a G9 and GH3. Still wouldn't update. You think it's because it's a Mark II. Well, the Mark II is definitely going to have its own firmware. If you're trying to use Mark I update on the Mark II, then clearly it's not going to work. They're totally different lenses. It may as well be a Nocticron. It's a completely different lens. So if the firmware update wasn't for that lens, then it's not going to work. Yeah, so the new firmware update, I don't know what that is, that firmware update 1.3. Let me just take a quick look. Let me see if I can find it. If that's something recent, I've missed it. So let's see here. We're going to go Panasonic. Helps if I can spell right. Panasonic 12-35 firmware update. Would you say it was 1.3? Just let's see what Google tells me. Update for dual IS. Okay, let's go ahead and bring this up on screen. And it's a dual IS update. 12-35 f2.8. No, those are just the lenses. Firmware update. GX. This is an older thing. So I think you're talking about an update for the version 1 lens, the Mark I lens. God, I love these pages. It's always so hard to find exactly what you're looking for. Firmware update. I don't even know. Compatibilities. Downloads. Let's try this. Downloading and software updates. Here we go. This is the page that I want. Camera, body, lens. Okay. 12-35, right? FS 1260. Here we go. HS 1235, August of 2015. There's nothing new listed there. That's the old lens. Let's go to this page and see. This actually lists the numbers. All right, again, 1232. Nope, that's not it. 1260. So there does not appear to be. I must be looking for the wrong thing because you are talking about there being. Oh, there we go. 12-35. No update for that. I don't know, my friend. I would have to dig into this a little bit more, but I am going to assume the way you've described it that you are looking at an older update. Here we go. Let's see. This says, I didn't think I saw anything on the website indicating whether it was a Mark I or Mark II. If it doesn't say Mark II, then it's a Mark I. Because remember, no lens is marketed as a Mark I, right? No one does that or ever would do that because then that would simply be saying, wait, don't buy this one. There's a Mark II coming. And generally, manufacturers don't know if they're going to make a Mark II until the original has been on the market for a while, and they determine whether it needs an update, it's worth updating, whatever the case may be. Remember, the 12-35 f2.8 original versus the Mark II. The Mark II has better performance in dual IS than the Mark I has, and it has better weather sealing. And I'm pretty sure those are the only differences. I might be wrong. There might be something else. Well, the color. It's a black instead of the kind of gunmetal gray, so it's a slightly different color. But that's effectively, as far as I remember from it, that's pretty much the only difference. So it would make sense that there would be an update for the old one, and it would not be labeled Mark I. It would just be for the 12-35, especially if the update came out before the Mark II was released. So that's what I'm guessing, my friends. That's what I'm guessing. So if I learn otherwise, I'll let you know, but I'm pretty sure. Christopher Pepe says, I shot a great TV commercial with a 15 and won an award. Love that. Congratulations. Can we see that anywhere? That'd be awesome. Drop a link in here, or I think if you drop a link, I think Ryan will be able to approve it. And either way, just give me that link. I'll put it in the show description. That'll be awesome. So anybody watching this, assuming that that is something that is available to be seen on YouTube, we'll link to it down below. That'll be awesome, Christopher. I want to see it. Okay, that is the last one. Excellent. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in today. Sorry for the late show. Hopefully that worked out for some of you better than others. And yeah, that's it. So Monday, next week is going to be weird because I'm going to be gone from Tuesday through the end of the week. I'm going to be down in LA for Vid Summit. I have no idea if I will be able to go live at all from there, so I'm not going to promise anything other than I'll do a show on Monday like normal. Also, the live training will be moved to Monday from Thursday so that I can get that out in the week. So we're doing 2 live shows on Monday. If you missed the new live training that was yesterday, by the way, I started a new live training series on Filmic Pro, the very advanced video shooting app for your smartphone or tablet, and it's on both iOS and Android. Yesterday's video was the overview, so it's the free to everyone. It will be re-uploaded tomorrow morning, Saturday 9 a.m., so you'll be able to watch that in its entirety if you want to. And of course, from there, we'll be going deep diving into individual components and features and so on of that app. So if you are into shooting high-end video on your smartphone, then it is definitely a training that you're going to want to see. Oh, Mr. Curley in here is saying that correct on the 12 to 35, both our latest version 1.3. Okay, so Tom's saying that both the firmware for both lenses is version 1.3. So if you were having a trouble updating, then I don't know what you ran into, but it seems like it should be working. So without more details of what you ran into, I don't know how to help you, but feel free to drop a comment or reach out on social media and I'll see if I can help you out. Okay, all right, folks, that's it. We're out of here. Take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.